and then we will hear the presentation from Salma Abdul Latif. Yes, sister, you can share screen if you have a presentation.
Brother Salman, who is presenting first?
Putri Apriya.
Yeah, she's around, but she has a problem with
okay.
this gadget. I think I will present on her behalf, but she will.
All right.
She's around.
Right.
She's around here. So because
Right.
I'm, this is a part of her. Let me check her PhD thesis. So I'll just. This looks better. This is a part of her PhD thesis, so I'm presenting on her behalf for a while, but we will have some discussions with her. Let me check. Can you co-host me, Prof. Nekmatin?
1 second, I think you are co-host. 1 second. Yeah, you are co-host now.
Yeah. Thank you. Let me check. Or perhaps Putri, you can just share the screen. Putri?
Okay, Madam. Inshallah.
Yes.
Yes.
Have you co-host Putri? All right. Okay. So yeah, let me first of all start. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul min lisani yafqahu qawli. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wa mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. Our respected professor, the person in charge on the symposiums, Professor Nekmatin Fizilaya, and brother moderator for today, Brother Salman Ahmad Sheikh, and the rest of the presenters. We have Sister Salma Abdul Latif and Dr. Putri Apriyaningsi. We have also the co-author, Dr. Jumni. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is a part of the Dr. Putri's PhD dissertation, since she has a problem to present orally today. So I would just like to discuss a few things about what she is writing. And this is a part of the introductions that she writes on family, financial management, and realizing the Sakinah family, or the reconstructions. So she's trying to reconstruct the model of the family finance. So next, Putri. So this is actually the background of the study. Dr. Putri put a kind of family problem, improper household financial management, which often becomes a dispute in the family, which eventually become the cause of divorce cases in the family. And it happens in most of the areas in Indonesia and I think elsewhere in the world, where the divorce rate in Indonesia itself in 2020 reached 688 cases. This number has increased every year since 2015. And according to the data in June and July 2020, the number of divorces increased 57,000 cases, with 80% of divorce cases that went to the high court filed by the wife. So mostly the female sides filed the cases to the court. And all the cases, not a few which are the cause of the trigger is economic problems. So there is 70% of my own observations that this family finance problems is actually the biggest problems occur in the families, and of course, family financial management. This is according to assumptions of Dr. Putri. There is a way of managing family finances regularly, and of course, it's through stage of planning, implementing, monitoring, and evaluating. And she conducts through the research by qualitative research, descriptive method, and then they categorize and interpreted using the thematic analysis and perspective. And the results finds that the Islamic family management starts from planning based on the right tawhid and strict intention. Dr. Putri, I think this is not the paper I gave you. Can you please change to the slide that I gave you? Ganti yang Madam kasih itu, Putri, bukan ini. Beda. Yang Madam kasih. Hold on, there's a slight problem with the slides. Yang Madam kasih itu bukan ini, ganti yang lain, yang tadi. So I gave you, aduh, yang Madam kasih. Yang Madam kasih itu, I think, let me. I think it's alright because of the time, Dr. Putri, is alright. You can just show that. Yang tadi aja nggak apa, yang tadi. It's alright, Dr. Putri. Yang tadi aja, Putri. Okay, so just go straight. Yeah, all right. So this is the background of the problem: divorce, economic, and the financial literacy that is very limited. And next, this is the model that Dr. Putri. All right, this is actually the outline of the research, and then this is actually the model that Dr. Putri mentioned as the solutions proposed by her to solve the problems of the family management or Islamic family finance in the family. So first is Tawhid, oneness of Allah, that has to be practiced among the Muslim families. And the second one is actually ibadah. And third is morals. And fourth is actually halal and tayyiban, either income or spending. And then the fifth one is actually the priority scale. And the sixth one is actually being moderate. And the seventh one is actually separating the ownerships between husband and wife. And the eighth one is actually smart working. And then how do you join the husband and wife career? And the ninth one is actually investment. So next, Dr. Putri. So this is actually how she elaborate on how to start with a family finance management. So she start with how to make a plan on the basis of Tawhid or oneness of Allah and with the intention. And second one is actually managing family, managing income, on how to make sure halal and tayyiban and mujahada, and also ukhuwah, based on ukhuwah, and managing needs, how to become moderate, how you spend the zakah, infaq, waqaf from your income, and how the family should actually keep the records, and to avoid ghalabat ad-dain, which is actually too much engaged with loan, for instance. And the fourth one is actually Dr. Putri proposed managing dreams on how a family, of course, according to Maqasid Syariah, we know that there are kuliyatul khamsah, yakni hifzul din, hifzul aql, hifzul nafs, hifzul nasl, hifzul nafs, and hifzul mal. So that has to be also practiced in the family. And the last one, the fifth one, actually controlling on where we actually do the audit, and also always be thankful to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and do muhasabah, evaluation. Okay, next, Dr. Putri. Okay, this is the model that she proposed, where the bottom part of the model has to be based on the halalan tayyiban income, where we have to do, as has been explained just now, as the foundations of the family, where the income has to be observed, where it comes from, how it is generated, and husband and wife has to be transparent about it. Then if the foundation is very strong, so it can actually support the middle part, which is actually the needs, the wants, and also how we the family can manage surplus and deficit sides. And on the top of the house, at the top of the model, she proposed the protection sides on how actually has to be bound with high ethics, yakni akhlakul karimah. Okay, down there, next. So Dr. Putri mentioned that this is actually the conclusion has to be through planning, income, needs, and wants. There has to be discussed together, planned together in the family in order to avoid miscommunications and also misunderstanding, so that the transparency in finance, in family finance, will be better. And this is going to be a key word for a Sakina family, a family yakni with a peaceful condition and situations. So next. So of course, she has some suggestions to the regulators, especially to those who are in charge on pre-marriage course. So there are some places in Indonesia that pre-marriage course is encouraged, but not yet that pre-marriage course is compulsory. Like in Malaysia, it has to be made compulsory. They call it pre-marriage course. I'm not sure in Turkey or in other country that you are residing, whether you have this kind of pre-marriage course. So normally it takes like about 1 week or 2 days, and they discuss A to Z about building a family. However, in terms of family financial management, it is still very limited. So the judges or the qadi normally doesn't have the knowledge about how to set up a good family management administrations. So such as this, Dr. Putri suggests that she would like to have a kind of proposal to High Court, to any local court, they call it Religious Affairs Office, that is in charge on marriage, to apply a compulsory pre-marriage course, including pre-training on Islamic family management. So this is actually her suggestion and her proposal. And of course, for future, to set up and what are the skills needed for the qadi, for the judge, to actually give advice to the new married couples on how to deal with their family finance. So this is very important. And then there are some also journals that cater on personal finance or personal family or financial planning, that also very relevant to this kind of research. So I think that's all for me. If anything that you would like to ask, Dr. Putri could be actually could answer, and also Dr. Jumni, will also be able to answer through the chat box or through their microphone. So thank you, Prof. Nekmetin. Thank you, Brother Salman. And if we have any questions, so please feel free to address. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum Assalam. Thank you for the presentation. It is a very, very important topic. If we look at economic theory, we see that the role of family is ignored in economic theory. When we go for economic modeling, usually we take individual economic agent as the decision maker. Even though in some models we call the economic agent as household, but we do not consider that household as a family. Family is very important because it is a very important social safety net in the society, especially in the regions where the financial exclusion is very low. I was looking at financial inclusion data of OIC member countries, and I saw that in a lot of countries where there is high financial exclusion, the role of family is very important. People are able to borrow emergency funds mostly from family and close family members. So it's very important to highlight the role of family in the society. The paper is also discussing a very important issue of financial management among the family unit. So it's a very interesting paper. If I would give some suggestions, I would like to see inheritance distribution as well to be covered in the paper, because in many societies we see that there is a lack of literacy about how to ensure inheritance distribution, what are the rules, what are the rights. And you also highlighted a very important point that the rights and responsibilities should be clearly understood even before the marriage, because we see that at the time of marriage people are happy, they do not consider a lot of details which would be important to their lives later on. So the rights and responsibilities should be clearly understood, and there should be counseling to both men and women regarding this. And I think one suggestion could be that there should be some education about it in our curriculum as well, because I think in curriculum we do not see that these issues are given a space, and people mostly rely on norms and their perception, and then when the disputes happen, they are not quite aware about the laws that are there, and how they have to follow the Islamic principles as well as the legal laws which are already out there. So it's a very important topic. I think you have done a very good research. You have taken primary data as well, which is very rare on this topic. And I have not seen so many topics on this area. So it's a very novel topic. I would just suggest that if you could elaborate more on inheritance distribution as well, that would be very ideal.
Thank you. Yeah. That is also included here.
Yes. So based on these comments, if you would like to add anything, you can add, and then we would proceed to the next presentation.
Yes. Sister Putri, do you have any comment?
I think just that, because my English is not very well.
Yeah, it's
So
all right.
Afwan Jidan.
It's all right. So Brother Salman, so yes, if in the top of the model, it's mentioned protections and also contingencies actually. That includes also faraid. So faraid is a very crucial issue where many Muslim families have neglected. And this is also a part of the planning that they have to prepare. And in the model, it's actually supposed to be on the top, the contingencies. Thank you, Brother Salman. You have already mentioned a very important point, and that I missed that in my presentation.
Yes, thanks a lot. A very novel topic, and definitely it has given food for thought to us who are participating in this graduate seminar. So now, due to the shortage of time, let's move to the next presentation.
I think we have a question, Mujahid Ahmed. It's better to
Yes,
get it.
I want to ask one question.
All
Sorry.
right, all right. That's great.
Sorry. First of all, thank you so much for the nice presentation. Very great job. I just want to ask one question. Do you guys hear my voice? My voice is clear?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but
I
Yes.
just
not
want to
very
ask.
loud. Make it
It's not
louder.
very loud.
Yeah.
I just want to ask, what are the factors that influence this model? I mean, to make sure this the model that you guys propose it is going to be successful. Yeah? Apart from the religious affair office or other, what are the to make sure this model to be successful?
Yeah, in order to the model to be taken into operations and then also taken into policies is actually by giving literacy educations to the communities in all levels. So I myself have actually done research on the strategic approach to the literacy. So from 8 age ranges, so 8 classes of age, from 0 to 6 years old, 7 to 12 years old, 13 to 15, 16 to 18, 19 to 24, 25 to 35, 36 to 55, and above 55. So these 8 classes need a different approach on how to the model to be introduced. So it's a very good question, Brother Mujahid. And not everyone can actually deal with these communities when it is given different age range. You know, the married couple could be in the range of 19 to 24, which is actually a very young married couple. But there are those people who already got married. They also need kind of this literacy, and they need different approach, different strategy. So that is why I done that research, and also different income levels. If they are low income groups and high income groups, they also need to have different literacy approach. And also if they come from different demographics, let's say if those are from Turkey, those are from South Africa, those are from Indonesia, from Malaysia. And in fact, in Indonesia itself, there are so many, we have 33 provinces, and we need different approach, how we deal with their culture, how we deal with their language. So it is very interesting, Brother Mujahid. And this is how we actually need to work together with the financial planners. That what I've been doing. I have trained myself, actually a trainer. I've trained 35,000 people across 28 countries. And Putri is one of my trainers, actually. I have 300 trainers. So we need to build more, to train more trainers and to conduct in their places on how this model to be tested and also to be practiced. And I have done also research in Pakistan, Egypt, and Indonesia for lower income groups. And mashallah, it's very touching that I can see that how they actually behave to their financial management differ across countries. So I have some papers about it, Brother Mujahid, if you are interested in financial literacy. I have a book on Islamic financial literacy as well. And inshallah, with you dua, Prof. Nekmatin and Brother Mujahid, I have written a book on Islamic personal finance in English, and it's going to be published this year, inshallah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for a very good question as well as a very enlightening answer. Indeed, it is very heartening to see that in your model you have also incorporated the demographic differences, including the age differences as well as the income differences as well as the regional differences, because there are different FIC followed around the world, and there are FIC differences as well. So it's also very good to incorporate the regional differences. So a very good research.
Brother, are you
the
from Pakistan, brother?
Yes, I am from Pakistan.
Yeah, I did that research with Akhwat in Lahore.
Oh, great, great.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah. I did that research, participatory action research in Lahore using that model. Well, similar model actually, and Alhamdulillah, the participations was very good. I got 200 people participated in my research. And inshallah, one day I would like to do it in Turkey with Prof. Nekmatin.
Inshallah.
Okay, that's good.
Inshallah. Yes, so now we can move to the next presentation. This is going to be by Salma Abdul Latif.
Assalamu alaikum, professors. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm not able to share the screen. Can you please enable me?
You are co-host now.
Okay. Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I shall start inshallah. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. ربنا افتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين. So my paper's title was Rational Behavior in Islam, or the concept, introducing the concept of Islamic rationalism. I wanted to approach such a topic since there are many gaps in the literature of rationalism. It usually handles the problem of rationalism from the conventional or the mainstream economics theory. However, now Islamic economics can introduce such a new approach to see rationalism from another perspective. The content of my paper starts with the objectives of the paper, a literature review, the methodology, the proposed Islamic rationalism well-being, function, and as well the collected data. We have collected data for 363 participants in Turkey to form an evidence against the irrational choice theory by the classical and the new classical economists. And finally, there is a conclusion. First of all, the paper aimed at critically reviewing the concept of rationality in mainstream economics, how it developed throughout the economic history, starting from the classical economists and even before, and followed by the neoclassical economists, and finally the views of some Islamic economists about rationality. Then I have proposed a unique concept of rationality or utility. As we're going to see, both of them will reflect the same thing from an Islamic perspective. As well, I will be revealing an empirical evidence regarding the rational theory, choice theory, from a survey, as I said, collected for 363 consumers in Turkey. First of all, the classical economists did not start with the perspective of a calculative man who would be doing all of the calculation as a computer or as a robot. However, first, starting from a pre-economic man, or the economic man idea, started in the Greek philosophy, and as well in the 16th century and next. So they handled the economic man as a household, or sometimes as well as a rural, or in the field of rural and domestic economics. Generally, it was a very limited. However, it's very important to refer to what Thomas Hobbes elaborated. He said that humans are self-interested, but as well they are passion-driven. However, when they pursue their desires, it can be affected by their passion or anything that is not rational or that is not other than reason. As well, they can be affected by morals and cooperation in a civil society. Afterwards, the foundations of the classical economic men by Adam Smith, of course, started to be inherently appearing in the literature. For example, Adam Smith, as the father of classical economics, he stated that people or every man is more deeply interested in what ever immediately concern himself other than the others, and that would eventually lead to the proper or will be promoting the end of the society as a whole. As well, the Bentham has discussed the principle of the greater number, or the happiness, the greatest happiness of the greatest number. Unlike the classical view, he showed that individuals' rational choices are consistent, but they are as well connected to ultimate ends of happiness for all the members of the society. As well, going forward, John Stuart Mill as well has discussed the desire of wealth to be the main or the basic aim for an economic man. And he actually set the basis of bounded rationality. He discussed that people would have restricted rationality. They will not be calculative human beings. However, they will be affected again with their psychology, their surroundings, and so on. So we can say that before the marginal revolution in the 1870s, most of the rationality concepts of all of the economists have been like the base of analyzing the consumer behavior. It was very simple. It was a limited concept. However, afterwards, the new classical instrumentalist homo economics appeared. So that takes us to the second phase, which is the new classical concept of rationality. It started, of course, with the, as I said, with the marginal revolution for marginalists like Jevons and Menger and Edgeworth. He would be, all of them have agreed that utility can be measured in units, and they have depended on the law of marginal or diminishing marginal utility for discussing it. They have considered that the utility principle, or the calculus of pleasure and pain of an economic actor, is the applied one. And as well, they started to mathematically doing it in quantities, and they depended on that law, the law of diminishing utility, for calculating what does utility mean, and to interpret the rational behavior of an economic agent. As well, the same thoughts have been shared by Menger and Edgeworth. However, it's worth mentioning that Edgeworth has set a contribution. He stated that the end of a rational action is an accumulation of pleasure, whether being self-interest or sometimes it can be for charitable motives. As well, it was followed by the Pareto optimal case, and he said that Pareto has discussed that rationality depends on the consistency of human beings in doing rational choices, and it would be affecting oneself, and as well it will be affecting others. However, we can say that in this time, at that time, rationality was a little bit again reconstructed upon the calculative man. And it was as well, we can refer to the Keynes's wild animals idea. He said that people are like wild animals. They can perform reasonable calculations, not extreme, to foresee the probabilities before making choices or making decisions. As well, Samuelson, in his revealed preferences theory, he has it was based on the idealized Homo economics as well, makes consistent decisions, and it will be aiming at maximizing his utility, and this utility can be again quantified in units. However, as we see, most of these the idea of the extreme Homo economics does not take into consideration any psychological or sociological aspects. It have been casted away from the rationality concept and in the idea of consumer sovereignty and positivism as well by the marginalists have casted away emotions, religion, ethics, and everything. Afterwards, with the rise of behavioral economics and the psychological scientists as well, like von Neumann and as well Simon's bounded rationality, Kahneman, Tversky, all of these contributions have been centered upon that people will take their decisions with a kind of logic, based on logic, but however, it is not sure that it will be extremely calculative. It will be affected by their emotions, their surroundings, their society, and their values, their own values. It has been as well discussed by some of the discussions in Australia for a microeconomic discussions about the economic rationality, trying to revive again the new classical Homo economics rational man. However, it has been faced with much criticism, and lots of Australian as well economists, like Wright in 2003, he has stated that being rational depends on what individuals want to achieve and what values do they rely on. So even afterwards, there has been too many some empirical evidences, like Sibels in 1997, he revealed that the consumer's rational behavior consistency is nullified completely with the Samuelson's revealed preference theory, for example. So as we can see in brief, the classical or the new classical have failed into introducing an acceptable interpretation for the rationality concept, especially for Islamic economics. Approaching the rationality from an Islamic perspective, it's not only the main significant difference between it and the classical or the new classical one is not, it's not just because of the existence of a self-motivated or self-centered calculative Homo economics, but as well, this kind of a character is repulsive in Islam. It's not accepted for a person to be selfish in that way. However, to attain that, you know, the utility or a profit or whatever a human being desire would, it's not completely discussed in Islam. However, it is had to be put in the moral and the ethical framework of Islamic economics. So this the idea of rationality have been discussed a lot since the earliest scholars like Al-Shaybani and Al-Ghazali and Imam al-Shatibi. And all of these scholars have discussed it in the framework of al-maslaha, which they considered as a broader concept more than the utility. Due to the timing, I will be just more brief. Going to the emergence of Islamic economics in the 20th century, too many economists like Siddiq Manzoor Kahf, Mannan and Muhammad Akram Khan, Asad Zaman, all of and as well Professor Al-Jarhi, they have all proposed different concepts of rationality. Like for example, I will be highlighting them very quickly. Munzir Qahfa, as an economist, he have said that the rationality has to be discussed in the framework of the ultimate success, or as we call in Arabic, al-falah. And a person should be aiming at that success as to be rational. As well, Muhammad Akram Khan, he discussed as well that the same concept of al-falah. However, for him, Islamic rational acts necessarily are the ones that result into positive outcomes in the hereafter and in the worldly life, after a calculus of the cost and the benefit. How, as well, Asad Zaman has discussed the spiritual and the moral aspects of human beings are neglected in the classical and the new classical theory, as if people are like mammals or animals. He agreed that people can be greedy and can be selfish. However, these two attributes can be overcome by al-amru bil-ma'ruf, or doing the good, and the ethical and the moral framework of Islam. So in my paper, I used the descriptive analysis first. The paper followed the quantitative method to reach a clear concept of rationalism, and I proposed a well-being function for an Islamic rationalist, and using the sources of the Quran, Hadith, and the previous studies. As well, secondly, the paper will introduce an empirical evidence against the rational choice theory. First of all, an Islamic rationalist or the Islamic rationalism will be depending on main assumptions. These assumptions, first, its main three assumptions. The first one, humans will maximize their overall well-being, or sometimes we call it welfare, in the worldly life and the hereafter. They are not only aiming at maximizing their utility or their satisfaction in the worldly life only, but in the hereafter as well. Second, it shall be based on the values and the commandments of the religion of Islam. Thirdly, it's not a sophisticated mathematical imitation. However, it's just an approximation of views. As it has been discussed yesterday, we have to be able to introduce some in an understandable form for the conventional economists how our thoughts to be discussed. So this is not an over-reliance on mathematics. However, it's just an approximation of views. Well-being as well, it's important to know that well-being, it will be reflecting satisfaction of component variables, as will be discussed. However, I can call it utility, I can call it well-being, but it will be only reflecting the satisfaction of a human being. As well, well-being cannot be measured in units. It's very important, and it will only be reflected on the conversions of that rational man from the proposed optimal status. Is it approaching or not? So in my function, I started as the well-being of a rational actor will depend on maximizing, or is a function in the utility of self and the utility of the others in the society. The self-utility is in material and immaterial. That means that in Islamic rationalism, for example, first, the material utility, people will be happier or will be more satisfied, of course, when they are self-based, and they will be self-based in the manner that they will be supporting themselves. They have freedom, but at the same time, they are morally obligated to participate in this community by covering their own needs first. but at the same time, they should be taken into consideration the interests of others. We can take one example for that is how a zakah works in Islam. So, for example, a zakah starts with a wealthy person who would be taken out the nisab from his money or from his wealth, and this wealth shall be directed to those in need. It might be in a form of a cash. It can be a small project. It can be a craft or anything to support them. And eventually, these people are taken from this insufficient situation or the poverty into the sufficiency. So a person as well have taken into consideration that he's doing an obedience or one of the fara'id, and at the same time, he has contributed to the society. Second of all, we have to define what is the need. The need, when it is discussed in the concept of al-maslaha, a need can change from one society to another. So al-maslaha, whatever contributes to people's benefit, is to be considered more than just the word need. Al-maslaha is more comprehensive. As well, it's very important to refer that people's intellect is to be used when they take decisions, not just being rational. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us as the best creation. And as follows, we have to be using this intellect to introduce ourselves to this society and as well to help all people around us. And this will be eventually making us, it's like will be a way to identify the holistic vision of the world and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does exist. So it will be as well to maintain the spiritual and the material yet again together. We have to take into consideration that such utility has too many constraints. For example, the intention. Individuals have to pursue the intention that to maximize or by their consumption or by their production, they want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People has to be constrained as well to their income. Indebtedness is discouraged in Islam. People's spending decisions as well should be according to their budgets. There is another constraint, which is extravagance and as well miserliness. People has to be moderate either in spending on or consumption, neither to the extreme extravagance, israf, or extreme indulgence in the worldly life. It has to be moral and it has to be halal. It has to be earned from halal sources and as well by a moral way. And finally, it has to enhance the society's interests. It should not be harmful, like the externalities problem, for example, in the conventional economics. Finally, the second half of the utility or the well-being of a human being is the spiritual utility that can be gained by the prayers, the fasting, the charity, al-hajj, or all of the other religious worship that can be done, because it will be as well keeping or keeping Muslims in a good relationship, or in it will be as we said, it will not separate human beings from being divided between the materialistic or the spiritual. However, it actually when people do their or earn or try to achieve their materialistic well-being, it will be at the same time an act of worship for the greater good, for whether it's for the maslaha of the society or oneself, and as well it will be to attain sufficiency. So finally, we can conclude that an Islamic rationalist is not just a utility maximizer, he is maximizing his morality and ethical sides as well. Briefly, I will be pointing at the data. I have collected through an online survey questionnaire, the response of 363 respondents from Turkey. They are adults, consumers, and by this sample, I wanted to prove that the rational theory or the rational choice theory is nullified. The survey had 18 questions, and it had 2 sections. The first section was for the demographic information, and the second one was about their buying decisions. Most of the about 60% of the sample were from females. Most of the sample as well have been ranging 88% about, ranging from the age of 18 to 45. And as well, 85% is at least with a 4 or a university degree. So this sample is considered highly educated. I can resume with some of the questions that have been asked. We asked the participants about what they think about themselves. They consider themselves rational or not. About 71% consider themselves rational. Most of the sample have either stated that they are influenced by family or they are influenced by advertisements, ads, and they might be as well affected by their mood swings when they make buying decisions. As well, they have some of the participants have as well stated that they are affected by their social environment. About 35% of consumers of the sample stated that they will be continue to consume harmful or not suitable products, even if they know that it's harmful for them. So in brief, one of the most important or the main findings is that among the people, the 71% of people who consider themselves rational and take rational decisions, 43% of them are affected already in other questions by social relations, 30% are affected by ads, 50% affected by their modes, 9% affected by social environment, their surroundings, their family. 62% are affected by, not affected by, they are pursuing a different behavior. They are not calculating, they do a search behavior first and then they decide, or they take immediate purchase decisions. About 37% feel what they feel towards the others make them take the buying decision. 63% have addiction tendencies, and as well 76% of those who consider themselves rational would be attracted to expensive products as if they are the most quality. However, this is just to show us that this rational choice theory is going to the empirical evidence. It's completely different from what it should be. So in conclusion, we can say that if rationality is considered a quality or an attribute that people are calculative, with a calculative character, such an economic rationality is extremely unrealistic. And as well, it takes away and casts away all of the moral and the values of the society. As well, rationality assumption in the classical and the new classical economics have failed into introducing a strong base to the analysis of human behavior. As well, Islam identifies humans as the best creation with an extraordinary intellect abilities. Their rational behavior would be bound by the human mind. After all, it's not highly calculated. As well, Islamic rationality would be depending, very importantly, on values, especially the Islamic values and the morals. It might be by the customary law as well, which will polish our behavior. Muslims, as morality maximizers, eventually pursuing that behavior will be leading to higher welfare of the whole society. And finally, Islamic economists are responsible for emphasizing that rational actor or that rational agent, that behavior, to be the unit of analysis that is suitable for Islamic economics. That's all for me. I'm sorry for being too long, and I will be closing my screen now. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. It's very enlightening and very thought-provoking. I like the way you have reviewed the literature, especially the classical economics literature and also the Islamic economics literature. And you have very rightly traced the history of economic men in the works of social philosophers before Adam Smith. And it's very important topic. If we look at the conventional economics sense of rationality, we find that it is very limiting and very restrictive. And if you look at Professor Amartya Sen's comment on conventional economics rationality, he said in one of his paper, which is titled as Rational Fools, he said that if the economic man has very restrictive and limiting assumptions as we introduce and as we explain, then he might be rational, but he would be a rational fool. So in conventional economics, what we see is that if people are not following the assumptions of rationality, they are considered as irrational, whereas they might be rational in a different paradigm. So you have very rightly pointed out that if we talk about Islamic rationalism, we can have different assumptions, but still the person is going to be rational. And now the conventional economics as well, uh, also incorporating the issue of multiple motives. People can have multiple motives. It's not necessary that they would be having a single motive of maximizing their own utility. There are economists who have also introduced relational utility. It's not necessary that utility of a person is only influenced by utility drive by that person. It is also possible that it is affected by the utility of other people as well, especially the close family members, especially uh, friends. So there is a concept of pro-social behavior, and some people have tried to incorporate it. So Islam has a lot to say on these things, and it's not that it is having a reactionary focus. It has principles which are quite older than conventional economics, and they are basically incorporating all these different things. Um, and it is also very important that we understand that preferences are dynamic. So in conventional economics, it is said that people cannot have intransitive preferences. But what if their preferences change? They are amenable. And we have the whole field of marketing, which is basically having this vision that people can have dynamic preferences. Their preferences can be made to change. They are amenable. They are transformative. And if that is the case, then it is possible that a person has a different preference structure, and based on that, he might choose a different choice. And when his preferences are transformed, he might engage in a different behavior. So it would not be that the person is having intransitive preferences. It's just that the choices have changed because of change in the preferences, and they are affected by values, and they have to be incorporated as well. I also like the way you have presented the mathematical model. Only suggestion is that if you operationalize the model, that will be much better, because in conventional economics, when we go for mathematical modeling, the problem is that we have to have a mathematically tractable model. So there can be a lot of variables that we think as important, but sometimes economists do not include all the variables because they want to ensure that these variables are operationalizable, they are measurable, and then these variables should not be too many so that the model becomes unsolvable. Because to get the reduced form solution, we can only have as many variables as the number of equations that we have in our model. If we have too few equations and too many variables, then the model will not be solvable by mathematical tools. So you can look into the operationalization of the model. Another suggestion is that you have used the stated preference model. Stated preference model is that we ask people to state their preferences. Now, what happens in such empirical exercises is that people tend to project themselves as more ethical, as more social, as more confident, as more rational as they might be in reality. So revealed preference or using experiments to reveal preferences might be a better idea. So this is a very good research, but in future researches, you might also explore how different experiments can be designed to get more objective responses rather than just asking people, because nobody is going to say that I am not rational. So that would be a very good idea to proceed with experiments. And my last comment is about the Islamic rationalism model. As I looked at few of the questions from your questionnaire, it seemed that they are a little bit different from the proposed model. So it is better to introduce the proposed model after your analysis as a proposed model rather than including it in the beginning. Because usually when we look at empirical researches, we tend to think that once a model is presented and after that analysis is presented, the analysis is based on the model. But in your case, it seems that you have done an inductive research and then you have come up with a proposed model, which is slightly different from the questions that you have posed. So it's better to introduce the Islamic rationalism model after the analysis as a proposed model, so that people do not get confused that basically your empirical exercise is based on the proposed model. And my last suggestion is to introduce more inferential statistical analysis by using empirical model and using the tools of structural equation modeling and partial least square. So you have done a very good research in presenting the descriptive statistics, but if you could also introduce some inferential statistical analysis, that would be enabling us to basically establish some hypotheses as well and drive conclusions which are testable, verifiable. So all in all, it's a very good research, especially the literature review part. You have done a very good job. And now, if we have questions from the audience, we can also take one or two questions. Because we have time, I think the
so the third speaker has a connection problem. So it seems he's not around. He's trying to connect, but somehow he couldn't. So we can continue. So I have just like a small, maybe like comments, if you allow me.
Yes, Prof.
Okay. Thank you very much for your paper, Selma. I mean, I really enjoyed it and it was really insightful. So, of course, the question of rationality is one of the main issue that Islamic economists since very early period are dealing with. So, but I mean, to me, human being, man is a like rational being by nature. So we can't say that Islamic worldview accepts human being as an irrational being. However, the rational person of Islamic worldview and the rational person who emerged after the Western Enlightenment in the Europe and then, you know, in the whole world are different from each other. So the of course, I mean, we all accept this fact, but the question how they differ from each other. I mean, how Islamic worldview, or let's say Islamic disciplines, Islamic sciences, the rational person of Islamic worldview and the rational person of the Western like post Enlightenment period are, you know, differ from each other. I think the point to be considered here is the ontological meaning attributed to human being, to you know, the man. To me, unless this difference is taken into account, it will not be, be possible to come up with a solution by using some Islamic concepts. So I am very interested in the theoretical discussion, and especially the theoretical differences between Muslim economist view and Western economist. But taking, let's say, the utility and putting maslaha instead is not, a concrete solution. So what Islamic economists in general are doing is only changing some, words, and using falah, using tawheed, using some Arabic words. It does not mean that we are coming with a solution for the the problems that all humanity is facing to. So here, the point that you mentioned and you today is really important, but there must be some concrete solutions, because until now we Islamic economists usually came with some broad concepts, but we maqasid sharia. So the term maqasid sharia is used on almost in all Islamic economic research. Of course, it is important, but the importance that is given to maslaha or maqasid sharia or this kind of terms is not as important as they were given in the pre modern era. And take the concept of maslaha, or take the concept of maqasid sharia. They are rarely used in some classical schools of Islamic law or Islamic thought in general. So that's why let's say we say falah, we say, or we change the utility or maximization of utility. So what we propose, what is proposed by Muslim economists is very important to me, because we usually don't come with concrete solutions. We don't come with concrete terms or whatever. So that's why especially your fieldwork. I don't know, did you do this fieldwork in Turkey? Are you here in Turkey doing?
Yes, I am. I'm in Ankara. I'm a master's student in the Ankara Social Sciences University.
Oh, okay. You are with Ustad Jarhi. So.
Yes, he's my professor.
Okay, that's good. Can
I just say?
That's why sorry. Just I'll finish. It's important to have field work and come up with concrete solutions in that regard. So thank you very much for your presentation again.
Thank you, Doctor. Professor, I would just want to highlight something. When you commented about the differences between a rational man in the pre-enlightenment and or the post-enlightenment industrial revolution and so on. If we take a look at, for example, what Adam Smith have been mentioning about a rational man or an economic man and what he should be doing, sometimes I would be agreeing with Adam Smith, and I would be taking his words into another perspective. I would be, for example, if we look at his books, whether it's the Moral Sentiments or his other book, Wealth of Nations, he had different views about an economic man that has been, in my opinion, misinterpreted by the neoclassicals, for example, or all of the economists that came next. I can be, for example, taking the invisible hand that he is talking about to be, for example, the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And taught, of course, to Allah is the greater example. However, when Prophet Muhammad said that Allah is the musa'ir, or he is the one who puts the prices, it can be exactly, or it can be something near the invisible hand or the market mechanism. So what I want to say is that the new classical economists and some of the post-enlightenment and so on, people have turned into just or economists have turned into just the materialistic view of a human being, and to pursue his self-interest as the main aim. Although before values have been taken into consideration, Adam Smith have taken values and morals into his consideration. It was not very clear, but it could be understood from his writings, for example. As well, the about the concepts like al-falah or al-maslaha or maqasid al-sharia, and this is something related, of course, to the Islamic literature. However, when we say falah, it's not just to use the Arabic term. It means the ultimate success. This is how they see. However, I tended not to use such Arabic terms because from this paper, I wanted to propose something that a conventional economist can see it and can understand what I mean with what I'm seeing. That's why, for example, as Dr. Salman said, I did not do some sophisticated statistical analysis, for example, because I think math takes the idea away from being applicable. It takes us again to the same point or to the same position as new classical economists. So I'm not attending into introducing a sophisticated math. But however, I want to introduce something that can be expressive somehow or make some sense in expressing the idea. As well, for once and all, I want to say that we as Islamic economists or in Islamic economics generally, there is a very important problem that Islamic economists sometimes shy to attend to use such terms, or sometimes they are shy to say that we take religion into consideration. We tend always to adapt that thinking that we are trying to approach Islamic economics to the conventional one, and we want to present our ideas in such a way. However, we have to be always convinced that Islamic economics is not a value-free science. It is a science or a branch of science that depends on morals. It's not completely positive. It is sometimes positive. It is sometimes normative. So we should be always comfortable with the some of the concepts. Of course, al-maslaha, it might not be understood by, for example, by all of people. But however, al-maslaha is not, it's not the satisfaction that I meant in the paper, or it's not the one that we should be using, yes. However, al-maslaha means a need that can change from one society to another, for example. And it's a much wider concept than if I say I need so-and-so. However, a need can change, like a car can be a necessity for me. It can be a luxury or something to another society. However, this is what I meant by al-maslaha. But I will be taking all of your valuable comments, of course, into consideration, and thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you highlighted a very important point that if we want to integrate Islamic values in the mathematical model, sometimes it becomes very difficult to integrate. Because if we introduce Islamic values as a exogenous variable, then it would not be affecting the final analysis, as you have rightly pointed out, because in the reduced form solution, the exogenous variables would not be basically coming. Only the endogenous parameters are going to be part of the reduced form solution. So if we introduce Islamic values as a exogenous variable, they would not be affecting the final analysis quite a lot. And if we introduce the Islamic values or Islamic principles as an endogenous variable in our objective function, then the problem is that we have to have a price side of things as well, because the economic model is basically trying to explain the market economic behavior. So whenever there is a demand side, there has to be a supply side. So there comes a problem that if we introduce Islamic values as a religious economic good, as a choice variable in the objective function, then we have to have a price side of it as well. And that is where things become a little bit complicated, because those values are basically not religious economic goods. It is all right not to try to integrate Islamic values in the conventional economic models, but in the empirical analysis, still there is room. We can do more sophisticated empirical analysis, which is not constrained by the mathematical, you can say, constraints. So if we have a mathematical model, definitely we have to follow these rules, that we cannot have too many variables as compared to the equations that we have. But when it comes to empirical exercises, inductive exercises, we can use non-parametric tests, for example, and we can also drive empirical models through SEM and PLS. So very enlightening presentation, thought-provoking, and you have given us the history of economic man, as well as how rationality is seen in different perspectives, classical economics as well as Islamic economics. And on top of that, you have also done a very impressive empirical work as well. We have one question from Walid. So Walid, can you ask your question?
Yes, salam alaikum. You heard me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you very much for Salma. Just sorry, I catch the mid of her presentation. Maybe my question will be related to this presentation before. Anyway, concerning the rationalism in Islam, did you find any studies or research, Salma, concerning the rationalism or behavioral rationalism in Christian, in Jewish societies, as well as if we want to do connection between this concept and the falah and the well-being or something? I had 30 years experience, and I had experience with the Christian, Jewish as well, in charity and well-being or something like this. So as well as they start to use in the Western societies, the social responsibility, which I sometimes refuse this concept, because sometimes I feel that it's want to place the zakat issues. From my experience, one time before 7 years, they offer me an UN agency, without mentioning this UN agency, they prepare a position for me in order to collect the zakat money for this agency. But I refuse this position because I use to know that this will be replaced the zakat issue. So I back to my question. Did you find any research about this with other religions or other societies? Thank you very much for your presentation, and I hope you can do some to give a chance for translation to Turkish to I remember another question when you mentioned in your questionnaire Turkish and foreigners. What you mean by foreigners? Is it the Muslim foreigners or Arab foreigners? Or thank you very much.
Thank you. You're most welcome. So concerning the first question, you were asking whether I have found any of the literature from Christian resources and so on. Usually, and this is one of the main reflections on the same paper as well, and the same idea that we're talking about, is that the sources, all of the conventional and the new classical, the classical resources are considered Christian, because this was the religion of that was prevailing. But as well, this is one of the things that, for example, classicals and neoclassicals promote, that economics is a positive science. However, if we look at the capitalist system, or if we talk about the socialist mindset, it's all loaded with values, or their own values, and their own opinions. So it's the same conventional resources is considered a Christian, because that was the religion prevailing in Europe and the United States and so on. So there is no need to go into position. However, it will be a different topic if we want to talk about the resources, the Christian resources like a Bible. The Bible to identify, for example, what it says about riba, for example, usury. So it's a little bit different topic. However, most of them of the resources is considered from the Christian background. It does have too much values, whether it's values that belongs to the socialism or the capitalism, or to the Christian faith as well. Concerning the second question, in the collected sample, Turkish or foreign, because the 363 participants have been collected from Turkey, so it was not all nationals, Turkish people, I mean. However, they were Muslims, of course, but some of them were from other nationalities than Turkish. So there have been Indonesians, Malaysians, Egyptians, and other nationalities as well.
All right,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you for the question as well as the very informative answer. So now we are at the end of this session. I must congratulate all the speakers and their thought-provoking presentations. They were very informative and very academic, and I think the quality of presentation does not seem to reflect that it's a graduate seminar. It looks like we are hearing very established researchers who are already past their PhD. So very thought-provoking, very quality work, and I hope that these works can be published as well, so that they can be read by a wider audience than the ones who have joined this graduate seminar. So now we are at the end of this session. I would like Professor Najmuddin to give some closing remarks, and then we can close the session by thanking all the participants as well as the speakers.
Thank you, Dr. Salman Ahmed and presenters Putri and Salma. It was really, and of course Professor Murniati, and it was really a good and insightful session. So now we are closing this session. The next session will start, as I wrote in our chat box, 11:45 Turkey, and so after 15 minutes. So it will be Turkish, and the session after that is in Arabic, and the fourth session will be in English. So alhamdulillah, we have three languages, and so we benefit from all presenters. Thank you all, and see you in following sessions. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Prof. Metin.